Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. If you've been following along, think of this as Chapter 2 of our journey into everyday science, and it is going to be a truly fascinating one. We're going to explore the hidden mechanics of the world around us, moving from the intangible, completely invisible forces of physics that fill the air, right down to the very tangible, biological dirt beneath our feet. Seriously, get ready to see your everyday environment in a completely new light. Okay, let's dive right into our agenda for today. First up, the invisible energies. Second, the building blocks. Third, secrets of the soil. And finally, forces in motion.
Starting things off with Section 1, the invisible energies, sound and heat.
Let's think about sound for a second. Whenever you hear a noise, whether that's my voice right now or maybe the vibrating strings of a violin playing a melody, what you are actually experiencing is vibration. It's just a rapid back-and-forth motion. But here's the really fascinating part. Sound absolutely requires a physical medium to travel. It needs air or water or a solid object. Those vibrations literally have to physically bump into molecules to spread. So, despite what all those epic sci-fi space battles show us on TV, if you were floating in the vacuum of space, it would be dead silent. Sound simply cannot travel through a vacuum because there's no medium there to carry the vibration.
Now, let's switch gears a bit from what we hear to what we feel. Think about this. Can you accurately measure temperature simply by touching an object? I mean, we do this all the time, right? We grab a mug of coffee to see if it's hot, or we hold a hand out to check if the air is cold. But honestly, how reliable are our raw senses?
Well, to answer that, let's imagine a really simple experiment. Picture taking two small glass bottles and filling them with colored water. You seal them up with rubber stoppers and then push empty ballpoint pen tubes right through the top. You're basically creating your own little DIY thermometers here. Now, if you place one bottle in a beaker of warm water and the other in cold water, you're going to physically see the colored liquid rise in the warm beaker and drop in the cold one. The liquid expands and contracts super predictably. Our hands, on the other hand, well, they adapt to temperature. So if your hands are already freezing cold, plunging them into lukewarm water will feel burning hot. It's a great little proof of exactly why human touch is a completely unreliable gauge for absolute heat. We literally have to use objective, scientific tools.
And to get those objective measurements, we rely on standardized scales. It's actually pretty wild when you look at how the fixed points of water, the boiling point and the freezing point, align completely differently across our three major temperature scales. I mean, water freezes at a perfectly neat 0 degrees Celsius, a slightly more random 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and 273 on the Kelvin scale.
And actually, speaking of Kelvin, 309.9 is such a fantastic number. While you're probably used to thinking of your average body temperature as around 36.9 degrees Celsius or maybe 98.4 degrees Fahrenheit, in the International Standard Unit of Temperature, which is Kelvin, you are currently operating at a very toasty 309.9 K. Kind of makes you sound like a spaceship, right? It's just a great reminder of how the lens we use totally changes the way we describe reality.
Moving right along to Section 2, the building blocks, organizational levels of life. To really wrap our heads around how life is organized, just think of a standard brick wall. That massive macro structure isn't just one giant solid block, right? It is meticulously constructed from numerous individual bricks stacked together. Well, a living organism operates on the exact same principle. You, me, your dog, the plants outside, we are all massive macrostructures composed of billions of fundamental individual microunits called cells.
And in our case, the animal cell is that fundamental microscopic unit of life. Just like a single brick provides the foundation for an entire skyscraper, the insanely complex processes happening inside this tiny, microscopic boundary are the absolute foundation for every single thing a living organism does.
All right, let's dig into Section 3, Secrets of the Soil, Earth's Hidden Ecosystem.
Most of us just walk around thinking of soil as dirt, just a brown, messy solid. But if we actually test that assumption, a whole new world opens up. Imagine digging up some soil from a garden, dropping it into a 1-meter-long polythene tube, filling it 3/4 of the way with water, and then just letting it settle. Magic happens. The soil literally separates into distinct layers. You're going to see heavy gravel at the bottom, then sand, then water with suspended clay particles, and floating right at the very top, you'll actually find parts of plants and animals. Turns out, soil isn't just dirt, it's a complex, layered composition.
And this ecosystem is absolutely teeming with life.
Now, we easily recognize the visible creatures, the macroorganisms, the ants, the millipedes, and the beetles bustling around. But the soil is also home to a massive population of completely unseen soil microorganisms, things so small you literally need a microscope to even know they're there.
So how do we prove they're there if we can't even see them? Well, we can set up a miniature detective story. We take 2 test tubes and fill them with sterilized boiled milk. In one tube, we add a sample of soil that has been heated over a metal plate, which essentially kills off any life inside of it. In the other tube, we add raw, non-heated soil. Then we just seal both with cotton stoppers and wait.
And here is the real kicker. In the test tube with the raw, non-heated soil, the milk coagulates incredibly fast. But in the tube with the heated soil, the coagulation is heavily delayed. Because milk coagulation is driven by microbial activity, this incredibly simple test definitively proves that the unheated dirt is absolutely alive, teeming with invisible organisms that are actively breaking down that milk. Mind-blowing, right?
And that brings us to our final section, number 4, forces in motion, friction, and pull.
For our final act today, we're going to look at a very straightforward mechanical experiment. Imagine pulling a single wooden block across a table using just a simple rubber band. You can easily see how much the band stretches to get the block moving. Now, take a second wooden block, stack it right on top of the first one to double the mass, and pull it again. Finally, we swap out that rubber band and repeat the exact same process using a Newton's spring balance, which is just a handy tool that measures force directly.
What you find here is incredibly intuitive, but it's mathematically profound. With the heavier, stacked blocks, that rubber band stretches significantly longer. A longer stretch visibly means a larger force is required to initiate motion. But by swapping in the Newton spring balance, we don't just see it, we actually measure it. The visual evidence of the stretched band correlates perfectly with the hard numerical data obtained from the spring balance. Adding mass undeniably requires more force to overcome friction and move. It's just textbook physics right before our eyes.
Okay, let's pull all this together and look at the summary to see how this builds our complete picture of everyday science. We've synthesized some really incredible overarching lessons today. We learned that the sound we hear is just vibration relying on a physical medium. We discovered that our bodies are operating at a warm 309.9 Kelvin. We proved that the simple dirt outside is actually a complex, layered ecosystem housing invisible microbial life, much like our own bodies are built of microscopic cells. And finally, we saw firsthand exactly how mass and force are directly linked in the physical world. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a final thought to carry with you. We've looked at heat, sound, microscopic cells, and hidden soil microbes today. What other invisible forces and hidden ecosystems are operating around you right now, completely unnoticed? The next time you take a walk outside, I challenge you to look at your everyday environment through this curious, scientific lens. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey of discovery, and keep exploring.